Welcome to Resume the Podcast. I'm your host, Courtney Page, and I'm here to spread the message that you can, in fact, be happy in your career. I'm a former executive recruiter turned career coach, and I am obsessed with learning about why people have chosen their career, what led them to that decision, and how they achieved happiness in the process. So, come join the ongoing conversation that exposes you to career paths of all origins with one thing in common: happiness. So, press play and let's resume the conversation with this week's episode. Our guest today is Harout Markarian, and he has had an extraordinary journey that spans engineering, innovation, sports, and leadership. As an immigrant from Lebanon who has risen above many challenges, Harout has carved out a very unique path, leaving an indelible mark on multiple domains. So, with a diverse background as a former professional athlete in basketball and having spent some time in the ballet world, Harout now spends his time using his skills and his education in engineering and aerospace, which has led him and his team to groundbreaking work in the autonomous uncrewed vehicle systems area. So he has won prestigious awards such as the Autonomous Uncrewed Vehicle System International Competition, and this accomplishment attests to his technical brilliance and also highlights his ability to push boundaries and deliver outstanding results. He is also a captivating public speaker, speaking at esteemed organizations, notably the FBI. And he also has his own podcast and is host of Mobility and Inclusion. That was a lot, Harout. You've done so much. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I don't even know where to start because there's so much that when we did our little discovery call, I was like, oh my gosh, this guy has like the coolest background. And I want to start with the question that I like to lead with is, if you were at a dinner party, what would you say if someone came up to you and asked, what do you do?
What I'm most proud of, which is what I'm doing today, is the assistive robotics company that I started. And I'm not proud of it because we achieved anything yet. I'm proud of it because we are truly working to add value to our seniors, which anyone who has a parent that he or she is caring for, a loved one that they're caring for, understand the challenges that come with caring for someone elderly, someone with limited mobility, even people with disabilities. Mm-hmm. And given we're seeing a lot of caregiver shortage, unqualified caregivers, the affording a caregiver is a huge deal these days. So what we're trying to do with our assistive robotics is to reduce the caregiver burnout, allow for increased independence and accessibility for those with limited mobility. So that's really what I do today. The goal is to improve accessibility, improve independent living, ultimately improve quality of life.
I love that. And it's interesting. So growing up, my stepmom actually worked in a marketing role, but the organizations that she worked in were all within assisted living. And I actually worked there for a summer in between school. I think I was in high school, but it was a huge deal, like getting people to accept the idea of being in an assisted, quote unquote, assisted living and giving up that independence, that idea of independence. It's a huge hurdle for seniors. And I actually currently live in Florida where I live right above Boca Raton. And I feel like Boca Raton is known for retirees. Yeah. And there's a lot, like anytime I fly home from anywhere, there are a lot of seniors, a lot of wheelchairs that come on and off the plane. And it takes a really long time to board and deplane. So I think it's an incredible thing that you're doing. Can you tell us a little bit about your company?
This is a company I started with my co-founder, Jeff Hoffman, who's really a pioneer in the entrepreneurial world, because when I had the idea of the company, I didn't know what to do. I knew who I wanted to serve because I had an experience when I was doing my master's in robotics. I worked with a severely paralyzed person on brain-computer interface.
What is that? You're throwing these like amazing terms out. Can you explain what that is?
Yeah, absolutely. So in a very simplistic way, brain-computer interface is like a helmet that you put on and it has electrodes that attaches to your different parts of your head. And these electrodes pick up on electric signals that as you're thinking thoughts, you're generating electric signals. So the signals are picked up by the electrodes and transferred to the motors. And that's how you're able to move your wheelchair, in this case, the wheelchair, but you can move an arm or whatever, right? Any electrical system that you can think of. But in this case, it was a wheelchair. So this individual was able to move his wheelchair through his thoughts. And that was really, for me, it was very impactful because when I saw that technology could be used this way in improving people's lives and giving them the independence that they thought it was taken away from them for one reason or the other, now we have ways to give that independence back to them. And that is a huge deal for people with limited mobility. And when I saw this, that was the first time I thought to myself that one day I would start a robotics company working on robotic platforms to impact people's lives in this way. But I didn't know what to do. And I was, like you said in your introduction, I spent most of my career in the aerospace and defense industry. So transitioning to entrepreneurship was a big deal for me because I knew nothing about it. So I wanted to get a mentor / co-founder that knew what he was doing, did this before and had success in it. And fortunately, I came across Jeff Hoffman, and he's previous founder of Priceline.com, Ubit.com, Booking.com. His first invention was the self-checking kiosks at the airports. He has a Jazz Grammy Award. So this guy is decorated when it comes to entrepreneurship, and he started from ground zero. So it was when I saw him speak at a networking event, he was a keynote speaker then. Out of everybody who spoke that day, that was the only person I wanted to talk to. And one thing led to another. We talked, and now we have a great relationship. He's a co-founder, as I said right now. And I did a lot of customer discovery to find that one product that would serve the limited mobility community well, like whether those are seniors, the elderly population, or people with disabilities. Mm-hmm. Now, the way we're doing that is by the ground robotic assistant for care enablement, which is a task-based robot that will perform certain tasks for you. So we reduce the risk of falls, we reduce caregiver burnout, we improve everyone's quality of life, and we give the family members who are caring for this individual a certain amount of autonomy that their lives are not fully revolved around taking care of this one person, right? So they have some freedom themselves as well. So that's what we're trying to do. We're very early stages right now. We're actually raising funds. We're looking for investors. And the reason I say I'm so proud of this accomplishment or at least this journey is because the customer discovery phase that I went through introduced me to a lot of amazing people that helped me create this company, helped me create this product. And we really built a community around Robotics. Robotics is the name of the company. And that's what I'm most proud of. The journey was amazing.
Yeah, I want to talk about that a little bit more. So how did you create a strategy for these customer discovery calls to find out? I think you mentioned you did that to find out where the biggest pain point was and how you could fix that, or how you could go about like creating a solution to that. So what did that look like? What did that journey really look like? Was it cold calling people? Was it networking? How did you create the strategy? And then what did that look like in the end?
All of the above. So
okay.
all of the above, because initially when I started, I didn't know where to go. But then because of my personal experience with caring for my grandmother and grandfather and seeing the challenges in our families, right? How exhausting, expensive, and deteriorating that is for individuals caring for the person and the person himself or herself, right? At the time, I knew I want to do something about this specific issue. Then I said, okay, but what do I do? What product do they need? How can I serve this community best? So I said, okay, I know a chiropractor. Let me start there. Let me start with what I know. So I went to booked a meeting with him, visited him, and he gave me his perspective based on the patients that he sees. What are their biggest challenges and pain points? And that was it. I took notes. On my way out, I called an Uber to take me home. And turns out that the Uber driver is also a caregiver that is caring for someone in an independent living facility. And
interesting. Universe is responding.
Yeah. And we were talking in the car. And as soon as I said, hey, I'm because she asked me like, what do I do? So I was just chit chatting in the car. And I said, oh, I just started this robotics company to help people with mobility challenges and the caregivers. And she immediately pulled over. She's like, and I thought I was getting abducted at that point.
Yeah, right.
I'm like, why are we pulling over in an Uber? He goes like, oh, I'm a caregiver. You have no idea how much help we need in that sector. And I'm like, oh, this is interesting. Please tell me more. So turns out she cares for this older individual that lives in an independent living facility. And she walked me through all the challenges that exist today, whether it's in the healthcare system that cares for people in independent living facility, or the individuals themselves, the challenges that they experience. That was good. Then she put me in touch with that person who lived in the independent living facility. So I went and visited him, spent a couple hours with him, took him lunch, talked. And this guy was pretty funny. He was pretty mad at the entire healthcare system. He was basically complaining about the long time that takes for a process to be completed. Like you put in a request and it takes 6 to 9 months for that request to come to fruition. And he was complaining about all of this. And I said, we really have a chance here to do something, to impact people's lives. But at that point, I still didn't know, okay, there's all this problem. How can I, who really knows nothing about this community, this sector, how can someone like me, I'm a technologist, I'm a roboticist, what can I do to help you? And at this point, I was just taking notes and just looking for the next person who's going to give me that revelation of, here's what you need to do, right?
Yeah.
So I wrote a book. I wrote a book called Mobility and Inclusion. And the reason I wrote a book, not because I'm this amazing linguist, it's because it was a pandemic period and like those visits stopped, right? So I couldn't talk to people. So I started doing research online and watching a bunch of TEDx videos and other YouTube videos that spoke about this issue. So I took all of that, put it in a book, and gave my thoughts on how technology, assistive robotics in particular, can help people live better. So that's how I did a book. Still, the book was good. I actually interviewed a lot of people. So the real stories of people are in the book. So it's not just my thoughts, right? People who I interviewed, for example, a Navy officer who was raped and tossed off a cliff, right? And she suffered a spinal cord injury, and that's something that she lives with till today. And her story is in the book as well. And now she has to use a wheelchair. Her entire life was changed. So I interviewed her, interviewed another person. So I should say that obviously I was doing podcasts to interview these people because we were still during pandemic times.
Yeah.
And that's why I said I'm so proud of this journey, because I got to know and build a relationship with such amazing people that have amazing stories, amazing backgrounds, right? And through these efforts, through the book, through the podcast, one day, someone who's a friend of mine today, but we met through my book writing efforts, he came to me and said, if you create something that helps us pick things up from the ground, things as simple as that, right? So we don't have to bend over. We don't have to reach out to reach for something. That will help us a lot. That will help a lot of people. And I'm like, okay, I remember that during my master's program, I had worked on something similar, but at a scaled version. So I showed him the project. He's like, if you can make this real, that'll be great. Okay. So that's not the idea.
Sure.
The idea started from something that can pick something up. And they have these like long sticks that it's like a trigger, and then it has the end, right? So most people use that, but it's not effective. It depends on, yes, it's very cheap, but it depends on your grip, your dexterity, right? How efficient you are. And then you have to lift it. Right? So there's all these challenges with it. And I said, okay, we can create a robot that does that autonomously, or maybe not autonomously, but it'll give you maybe a hand controller, or we can build an app that will allow you to manipulate the robot to do that for you without you having bending over, risking a fall and risking additional injuries, because as these people are vulnerable, right? Are fragile. So any additional fall that can be prevented, it will result in higher risks. I
do know for women, especially if they break a hip, there's like upwards of like 80% higher chance of death within the next year of that accident.
It's funny you mentioned that. It's because my neighbor, she was on the heavier side, and this lady, like we used to be very good with. She used to live alone, And we used to help her with taking out the trash and putting the trash back and anything that she needs. Sometimes my wife used to shop for her. One day at 6, usually I go to work at 5, right? So I left the house, 6 a.m. My wife calls me and she's like, oh, Pam is on the ground. She's bleeding and she's calling for help. And my wife can't lift her because she's heavy, right? And turns out that she tried to pick up her morning newspaper, or there's one of those papers that they toss in front of your door, right? So she was trying to pick that up and she fell. She fell, hit her head, and she was bleeding. So I left work, came back, tried to lift her. I couldn't either because she didn't even have upper body strength to embrace herself.
Help,
so I lift. So we had to call the firefighters and paramedics to come and attend to her. And unfortunately, a year later or so, she passed away. So that was very preventative. If you had some device like that in your home, that would have been a scenario that we could have prevented.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, at the time, she didn't have that device. And what happened? And things like this that kind of motivates you, because entrepreneurship is really hard, right? You're raising funds. Sometimes you're putting your own money. You're putting everybody in your family at risk because you have this vision, this dream. What motivates me really are the overwhelming amount of positive feedback that we're getting, not from investors, because most investors don't understand the situation. Most investors care about the return that they're going to get, and which they should, right? And that's the business we're in. But very little are those who understand what this can do, how much valuable this can be. And so we're right now, hopefully we find that right person and build this technology, because we have built a prototype and tested it. Now we're looking for some real capital that we can infuse into the business so we can build minimum viable product.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, so much. Okay. First, I want to go back to younger Harout. And I think there's so much I want to hit on, but just to get this out of the way, can you talk about your basketball and ballet experiences? And was that here in the States, or was that when you were growing up?
That was when I was growing up in Lebanon, yeah.
So you were a professional basketball player?
Actually, I started with the ballet classes.
Okay, so, take us through it.
So 7 years old, my mom had a cousin who, when I was 7, but how it happened is my mom had a cousin who was in this dance academy, and she was telling my mom all about it. And at 7 years old, I see my mom dragging me into these dance classes. And I'm like, if this is your thought in getting me into the cool boys club in school in the Middle East, that's not a really good thought. So, but I loved it. I ended up doing it for 12, 13 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I loved it. My friends were from there. I have lifelong friends that I met there. And what's funny about ballet is that teaches you characteristics, like shapes you into the human that you are today, or that I am today, and gives you characteristics that carries you throughout your life, whether that's in your personal life or your business life. Things like discipline, focus, accepting constructive criticism, and just adaptability, preparation, all traits that you need today in your life and in your business life, right? So I could have been more grateful to my mom putting me through that. And actually, both my mom and dad were also basketball players. My dad played it professional before me. So
wow.
I was born into that family, and I just love basketball a lot. And I love my dad. I used to go to watch my dad, and just like that was in me, and I was naturally good at it. And that was the bigger passion that I had. I liked ballet. I liked the performances. I liked the friendship that was built in those walls when we were used to practice and go perform in various stages and various countries. But the passion was in basketball. And when I was most valuable player at one point in my younger years in all the schools, and it was just something that I was good at, right? And I practiced without anyone telling me that you need to practice. I spent countless hours in dark gyms, shooting and doing drills by myself. So the passion was there. And unfortunately, the infrastructure in Lebanon at the time was not there to sustain that kind of dedication, talent, to nurture it and perfect it, right? So everything that I did it by myself. And I ended up professionally for a short period of time till I was 23, and I had to move here. but it was the best days of my life. And anybody my age, from my generation, who lived in Lebanon, lived through a civil war, an international war, random terrorist attacks in the city. So we didn't have the easiest life, but we had a great life. So I cannot, I'm grateful. I thank God every day for the life that he's given me and the journey that I had, because it taught me so much.
Yeah. And what was it like leaving at 23? At that point, it's all you know, really. It sounds like you had a lot of exposure through ballet and through basketball, through the world and everything. But what was that like coming to America at 23 from a war-torn country?
It was very difficult. It's like any other thing, right? Leaving everything behind within a month's notice that you have to leave your country. You have to leave everything you knew to relocate to this place where I used to watch in the movies or I used to hear about. And fortunately, I had cousins here. I had my uncle here. So I have some family here.
Okay.
That was the easy part. But to leave everything that you knew behind was very difficult. And it took us, sometimes I say, I still feel like I just came here. It's been 15 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, 15 years. And I just feel like I just came here. But I should preface this by saying that obviously having so many hobbies, I should say, in ballet and basketball.
Yeah.
I wasn't doing very good at school at the time.
I was about to ask you, like, where were you at school, like during this time? Were you in college or university? And because you have like multiple master's degrees. So
I was in college. I was in the university in Lebanon. I was in engineering, and my grades were like terrible, to say the least.
Why? Because you were just not into it?
I wasn't into it. I used to come home. I used to practice 3 times a day, twice by myself or once by myself, twice by 2 different teams, one the university team and the other one my professional team. And you need time to rest. And school in Lebanon is very difficult. That was one culture shock when I moved here. I'm like, really? Is this the education here? This seems like a play. We're very simple.
Why? Like, how was it so?
Well, I'm talking about the high school years, right?
Okay.
Here, if you're not taking these advanced classes in high school, you're not really going to school. You're just wasting your time. And I saw that with my sister, because my sister, she came here, she was 14, 15. So she's still...
Okay, so she went through high school here.
Yeah.
Okay.
And she was taking classes that she took over there in pre-high school time, right?
Oh, wow.
Well, I used to tell her, what are you doing? Like, these stuff. You have an opportunity to go take higher classes. Like, I don't know what they called it at the time. AP classes, exactly, yes.
Yeah.
So go take those AP classes. These are things that you already know. You need to be better. But she played through it, so it was easy. And I didn't put too much pressure on her, because as a kid moving countries, again, leaving everything behind, it was, of course, a lot tougher on her than it was on me. At least I had some type of mental fortitude, whatever that means.
Yeah. Well, 14, that especially, like,
it's a transitional period,
super
right?
Formative years, and transition. Friends are super important at that time. Yeah. So that's tough. Yeah.
And I should say that I have 3 sisters too. So I believe for the girls, it was tougher maybe I can say that. For me, it was like I was leaving my passion behind, which was basketball.
Yeah.
But that was a blessing in disguise, because basketball, at the time at least, basketball in Lebanon had no future. So I couldn't take care of my family. I couldn't even get married with that kind of salary or basketball, playing professionally basketball over there. You had to work another job to sustain yourself. So salary from basketball did not mean anything.
Okay.
So that's why I say it's a blessing in disguise, because when I moved here, I was already late. It was July 31st, and we moved within a month of notice. The embassy gave us 1 month to leave the country and be in the United States. So we just packed and left. That was it, like that.
Like no questions. Yeah.
And of course, I didn't want to come. But deep down, I always trusted my parents. I always trusted that they wanted the best for us. So unwillingly, I came. At the time, I already had 3 years in my college degree. So when I came here, as I said, I came in July 31st. I was already late. I couldn't enroll in any college. So I played college basketball in a junior college here.
Okay.
So like that sustained me. That's what kept me here during that time till I took some classes, got better grades, and transferred to a 4-year school. But I finished my undergrad within a year and a half of transferring. And mind you, they didn't even approve any of my credits at the time.
So you had to redo it all?
I redid my entire mechanical engineering bachelor's program.
Oh my God.
Or 90% of it at least. And I used to take crazy classes. I used to go 6 a.m. in the morning, come back home 12 midnight, used to spend my day there. And because basketball was no longer a part in my life, I just focused on my studies.
Okay.
And I had great grades. And I'm the type of person that I'm not satisfied with theory only. I like to see how theory is
applies.
Right. And what's the application of that theory? And that's why I take longer time to comprehend something, because I want to understand how the theory is derived, and then I want to apply it and then see how it's working, whether it's working efficiently or not. So that's the type of learner I am.
Yeah. Like if it's abstract, it's just not.
Yeah, it's just not there, right?
With you. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. You can tell me I can understand it, but if I don't apply it, 5 seconds later, I forgot it. That's how.
Sure. Yeah. I love that you know that about yourself too. I think understanding and just accepting our learning styles is one of like the biggest keys to academic and professional success.
Absolutely.
Because otherwise you're just working against yourself. And you can, if you don't understand it, a lot of people will just be like, oh, well, I'm just like dumb, or I'm just not like in the right field. And it's like, no, that you just have to figure out what works for you.
Yeah.
So I love that you came to that conclusion. And especially in something like mechanical engineering, I actually have a friend who studied mechanical engineering. We grew up together. And so we were like right there when she was going through all these crazy classes. I was like, oh my God, how are you doing that? I'm not an engineering mind. My sister's an engineer. And I just look at you guys, I'm like, oh my God, this is insane. So like, these are not simple concepts that you're taking and applying. You have to really get it.
Absolutely. And this is what I say. It's what you will do, whatever it takes in the subject matter that interests you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Period. If you have an interest in whatever subject, whether it's rocket science or whether it's just reading a book, if it is interesting to you and if you have a passion for it, you will do it. We all have this mindset that, oh, I'm not smart enough for a certain thing. That's not true at all. It's either you're willing to do it or you're not. And if you're willing to do it, you have interest in it, you're going to figure out a way to do it. And that's what I say all the time. People come to me I had this interesting experience. I was playing basketball here in junior college, and someone came to me and said, hey, you are smart enough. Can you teach me history? History you don't need to be smart to learn history. You just have to read what happens in the past.
It's right there.
Yeah, it's like, what he was telling me is that I don't want to learn this. I have no interest in doing this. And why don't I find someone that can help me, without realizing that no one can help you if you have no interest in something. Right?
Yeah.
Whatever I'd say, it's going to go in one ear, get out the other, right? So it's not going to register in your brain. So that's what I say to people. People come to me, oh, math is really hard. Or I'm not smart enough for this. I'm not smart enough for that. It's like, that's not the case. Just figure out what you want, what you have interest in, and just pursue that road. That's what I tell them.
Yeah. And then there are those kind of like gen ed courses and the things that you have to do just to get the degree and get through it. And even just in our jobs, like there are going to be things like in each job, even if you are pursuing your biggest interest, there's going to be certain things each day that like you don't want to do, and you just have to have that grit to get through it. But generally speaking, definitely, like if you're not interested in it, you don't have to major in it. You don't have to go after it.
One quick note, and this is what I say about what you just said. The most successful people do things most people don't like to do, and they don't like to do, but they are successful because they do the things that they don't want to do. And because that's what gets you paid most of the time. As an engineer, I can develop whatever crazy system or robot that I want. If I don't do the paperwork, which I hate, it's not going to get paid. Period. That's how it is.
So how do you get through that? What like tips do you have on getting through the paperwork or whatever the paperwork is for someone?
Well, you don't really have much choice, right?
You don't, but some people will just like not.
Yeah. Well, that's what differentiate between one person and the other, between a successful person and the other, right? The successful person do the things he doesn't want to do immediately, while the unsuccessful person or somewhat successful person, which is unsuccessful in my mind, will postpone the things that he doesn't want to do forever and ever. And so if the task, it's going to require you an hour to do a certain task that you dislike, right? If that task takes you a week, then you lost already. You're not going to get it. So payment is going to come that much later, right? That's in the engineering world, at least. So
no, yeah, but I think what you're saying can be applied anywhere, where it's like, I've heard of this before. I don't know where I heard it, but it is this thing. My husband also does this and he's really good at it. But like, if there is the task that you don't want to do, the biggest task that there's like a word for it. It's like the frog or the bear or something. Like, do that first thing in the morning. Like, just do it first, get it out of the way. And then you don't have to worry about it. Like, then you can go do the thing. Then your reward is doing the thing that you like to do, as opposed to like, you can't really even enjoy the thing that you want to do and that you like doing if you have this thing in the background, like, oh, I have to paperwork at the end of this. That's no fun. So yeah, I think you're totally on point. And it's also just coming to mind, it's like my favorite quote ever. And it's just the Nike tagline, just do it. It's like the best. I love it. It can be applied anywhere. And it's like, just do it. Just get it out of the way. I do want to ask you a little bit just about coming from Lebanon, coming from a Lebanese family. What expectations? The culture is very different from America. Obviously, you mentioned like some culture shock happening, which is, of course, understandable and expected. But what I'm interested in is to know what your parents, having been professional basketball players, what were their expectations for you in America? Coming from Lebanon, like, were you guys sure that you were going to be here for a long time? Was there an idea of like, oh, we're only here temporarily and we're going to go back? Or like, how did all of that kind of manifest into your aerospace and engineering degree and then your career?
So we were somewhere in between, I say. So the move was permanent and we all knew that.
Okay.
But whether that was accepted is a different story, right?
Sure.
Because, okay, we received the news. We packed our bags, came here. First thing to do, the expectation from my parents at least, was to get a degree, right? To finish my education. And fortunately for all of us, that I really enjoyed my chosen career and decided to pursue a master's in robotics. And we lived for a long time without money. When I say without money, of course, my dad supported us because he used to come and go because he had a business there. So he used to support us from Lebanon, right? So that usually people come here and support family in Lebanon. We did that the other way around.
Yeah.
So, and more power to my dad for doing that. And all I want today is for God to grant me that opportunity to take care of my parents as they took care of us. Really, that's what makes me happy today. Just taking care of my parents, my wife and kids. And I work for them. I work for them and I work to glorify God for all the opportunities that he gave me and he put me through. It's just, I'm so blessed beyond belief with all the challenges to find myself here today doing this with you. Never in a million years I would have thought that I'd be in similar situations, but it's always like God has a plan for you. You don't understand it, but it's always to your benefit, right? So as far as the culture, Lebanon is a very small country. It's smaller than the county of LA, right? So we didn't have very diverse people. It was just the Lebanese people. We have Syrians, we have Palestinians, but it's like same group of people. And when I came here, that was the shock, for me at least, to see French, to see the Afghanis, to see the Indians, that was something I got exposed to here. When I came here, I was expecting blonde eye, blue hair chicks. That was a culture shock when I got here. I was like, welcome to
Scandinavia. I think you.
Well, I guess too much movies growing up. That's
definitely, especially California. I think that is definitely like growing up. That was the kind of like aesthetic that people placed on California, like the blonde surfer girl and guy, super tan and all of that, which is still true. But yeah, I want to jump into entrepreneurship. So you went through school and got your master's. You said that you're very lucky to enjoy what you do, which is one of the reasons that I wanted to have you on the podcast, because my purpose in this podcast is just to expose people to other people who enjoy their careers, because so many people don't. And I think not only the fact that you're here today and we're having this conversation through everything that you've been through, you're here today with your family with you, you're safe, you're happy, and you're doing something that you love. A lot of people who maybe have been through something similar to you will end up taking a job that is financially stable that they might not enjoy so much just for so I think it's one thing that really captivated me about you is that you've been through all of this stuff and you've created this career that you thoroughly enjoy and that you're passionate about. So I want to discuss a little bit of how you did that and entrepreneurship and how that what led you down that road.
By being proactive in my life. So I always say that the most paralyzing thing in someone's life is the fear of the unknown. But you have to put yourself in unknown situations to figure out whether that thing is something to your liking or not. And when I was pursuing my bachelor's degree, I was just doing for the sake of satisfying my parents, just so they can get off my back. Here's my certificate and just leave me alone. Fortunately for me, when my last year in my undergrad in mechanical engineering, we built this 6-foot-tall autonomous robot that we won international championship in that you mentioned in the Autonomous Uncrewed Vehicle System International. And during that time, I found a new passion. I found a passion in building robotic technology. So my passion in basketball, and basketball was long gone before that experience, but nothing replaced that passion, right? So you have to put yourself in various situations. Sometimes you have to do things that pays the bills. Yes, some things that you don't like that pays the bills. Fine. Sometimes you have to be in that situation. You have no other option. But it's the biggest mistake to keep yourself in that situation. Because what you should do, and what I did, when I encountered situations that it wasn't pleasing to me, but it was putting food on the table, I pursued that. I still did that. But in my free time, I looked for other opportunities where I can go, learn, expose myself to new things, and see what else is there that I can enjoy doing. And that's how my path during the 15 years time that I was here shifted many times. I never settled for security. That's why I found myself at 5 different companies in 15 years, or maybe 6 different companies in 15 years. People say that you changed a lot. Well, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I enjoyed what I did. Of course, there was a lot of challenges along the journey, but I wanted to put myself in situations where I was uncomfortable, because that's when I grew. Those are the times when I grew, when I expanded my horizon, when I expanded my limits, when I knew that where's my breaking point, right? And I still didn't find that. That's something that breaks me. It's so paralyzing that I don't want to do. No, I always want to take the chance, take the risk to do new things, to serve new people. And I live by this motto. I live by God put us on this earth to serve each other, right? And we serve each other, we are serving God. And that's how I live. And through my work, I want to serve other people. Before it was employment in various engineering companies. Now by doing my own company and serving people with robotic technologies live better. And that's exposing yourself to different things till you find what you're passionate about. I think is the best way to live life.
Yeah, I love that. And so going through all of those experiences at different companies and exposing yourself to different opportunities will bring different people into your life. And
Absolutely.
So you end up at this networking event watching Jeff Hoffman speaking. What was it about what he was saying that grabbed you so tightly?
So as I told you before, when I decided to do entrepreneurship, I was fairly educated at the time. I even had a business degree, a master's in business administration. But entrepreneurship is something different. Entrepreneurship requires you to do a lot of things that you can't afford to pay someone to, or to hire someone and pay them to help you do it. So you have to do everything by yourself. So when I was listening to Jeff speak, he was talking about everything that I already was going through at the time or will be going through in the future, because he walked in my shoes 30 years ago. Right. And that's why I'm very passionate about finding you a mentor that can facilitate your path,
Yeah.
right? That can accelerate your path, I should say. Because when you have those people and someone as amazing as Jeff that is really in service for others, even after he made his fortune, now he gives it all away and all to the betterment of entrepreneurs, right? And when you see someone or hear someone speak that way from stage, I wanted to meet him. Mind you, I didn't know Jeff at the time. So I had no way of meeting the guy.
How did you meet him? What did you do? Take us through it.
Oh, well,
This is like what I love. I love these stories where it's like, I want to know exactly how you did it. Because if someone's listening, it's like, okay, so all of a sudden he's friends with this guy.
Yeah. And it's a bit intimidating. Because you think to yourself, what do I have to offer this person? Why would he talk to me? Right?
Right.
So luckily they auctioned him. So there was a few charities there. So they said, if you donate to these charities, you'll have an hour of Jeff's time.
Okay.
Right? So at the time I was like, I don't care how much it costs. I'm doing this. So there was about 200-300 people in the room and they started auctioning him. And the bid was between me and this one other guy. So it's like, I'm like, you know what? I don't care. Even if I have to spend all my money today here, I want to talk to this person. Because some things are not valued with money, right? Money will come and go. But Jeff is in my life forever now, right? Because we built this relationship that is not valued by dollars, that is not valued by a material thing. It's a human relationship, true, genuine human relationship that you can't find really a lot these days. Mm-hmm. And long story short, I won the bid and an hour meeting, turned into 4-hour lunch. Then I did a mastermind with him. Then I asked him to be my co-founder. Then so it's just the trigger point was that keynote speech. And it's me taking action, right? Some people say that, okay, he spoke. I don't have the money to pay and I'm not in the best financial situation either. But I believe that was worth my money. That donating to that charity was a double benefit, both to the charity and to me and hopefully to Jeff. I hope he sees it that way too.
Yeah, I love that. Oh my gosh, I could talk to you forever. But one thing that I really want to hit on, just because I think it's something that a lot of people deal with, whether they're going down the journey of entrepreneurship or they're climbing the ladder in their company or whatever they're doing, is imposter syndrome. And how, if that is something, you seem like super confident and like you have everything together and you're like, you just push through. Is that something that you ever dealt with going through?
All the time.
So how do you recognize it and how do you deal with it?
That's an interesting question. How do I deal with it? Because as I said, I face a lot of challenges daily, and that's the entrepreneur's journey. Any entrepreneur that comes to you as, I knew this was going to happen this way, it's full of shit. And that's a bunch of BS because as an entrepreneur, you doubt yourself constantly. I doubt myself every day, right? Mm-hmm. But I still keep pursuing it. I pursue it. And the reason I pursue it is because people tell me that what I'm doing is valuable. So I got validation from the target customers. For me, I'm talking about me specifically right now.
Yes.
And the company that I'm building. Everybody I showed the technology to or what our vision and our goal, we have overwhelming amount of positive feedback. I've yet to point to that one person that told us that this is useless waste of your time. If you find that kind of journey where everybody is depending on you to succeed so you can add value to other people, you can't just give up. With all the insecurities, with all the challenges and all the difficulties that I'm enduring today, I still push forward because ultimately, again, as I say, this is very important in my life. Ultimately, I'm in service of God and then in service of people. Of course, I want to make money, right? I want to make money to live, to sustain my life, to give opportunities to my children, to take care of my parents as I talk. But if I'm not adding true value to other individuals in the process, for me, that is not genuine. That I don't want to be in that. I don't want to put myself in that situation. As long as I'm true to myself, I'm true to my mission and I'm happy doing it. I just keep moving forward with all my challenges, insecurities, and difficulties.
Yeah. And I think something you said was really important, and I want to underline it there, is that you can be in pursuit of doing something in service for other people while simultaneously needing to make money. I think a lot of people think they're mutually exclusive and feel this kind of almost like, I don't know if it's resentment or like dirty about like making money off of like a service they don't always like seem to mesh. But the more you are able to support yourself, the more you can then give back to other people. Like it's just
100%.
the whole fill up your cup in order to
100%.
fill others.
Absolutely.
So I just wanted to say that because I know that's something that I definitely like have had to wrap my head around a couple times. And yeah, so I thank you so much. Okay. Like I said, I could talk to you forever. I just have a quick rapid fire kind of thing if you're into it. Okay. So what is the best career advice you've ever been given?
Best career advice was my first boss. He said, you don't need to have a title that says you're a leader. There's something called assumed leadership, right? So that you give yourself to do your job as best as you can, right? So assumed leadership, always assume that role and take charge of whatever task you've been given.
I like that. What is the best just life advice you've ever been?
Never quit.
Love it. And is there a favorite quote that you always go back to or?
God's gift to us is more talent and ability that we can use in our lifetime. And our gift to God is is to develop as much of that talent and ability in our life. That's what
Love it. That was good. Wow. That was a really great memory. Good job. It's a long quote. And okay, what is your favorite current daily practice and why?
Reading the Bible. It just keeps me moving forward, keeps me true to what I believe in, and just brings confidence to me.
Last question. What is your favorite pump up song of the moment, if you have one?
I don't really listen to music.
Really? What? I have someone else on who said that, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's so interesting. She said silence. Silence was her. Yeah, okay, I love it. Interesting. All right, cool. Harout, thank you so much. This was awesome. And we are going to include in our show notes any links that Harout mentioned. So to his book, podcast, and his website, and all the things, handles, all of those things are going to be in the show notes. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode. I'm so grateful for your precious time and energy. And if anything resonated with you, please feel free to share with a friend and subscribe. If you're interested in career coaching, I would love to hear from you. Email me at Courtney@resume-careers.com and follow me on Instagram at CourtneyAustinPage. Thank you so much and see you next week.